All right, delighted to be joined by a man very familiar to most of our viewers and listeners here in Ireland, Barry Hearn, the president of the promotions company Matchroom Sport. And of course, Barry's autobiography, My Life, Knockouts, Snookers, Bullseyes, Tight Lines and Sweet Deal was released on April 28th, and it's available now on Amazon and in all good bookstores. An evening with Barry as well, Tuesday, May 3rd, upcoming at the Crucible Theatre in Sheffield. Barry will tell some stories about this new book, no doubt, and sign a few copies for fans as well in Sheffield. Barry, thanks a million for joining us.
Pleasure.
Great to chat to you as always. And I mean, I've heard recent stories about why you decided to do this book. I know your daughter had twin boys quite recently, and maybe leaving a legacy for them and for yourself was one of the reasons.
Well, the principal reason was that, because I've been a lazy bucker, this is too much work for me. I have other things to do, but my daughter put me under pressure. But actually, to be fair, I've really enjoyed the process because it's quite, I do a lot of fishing, and when I'm on my own, I take a tape recorder, and it's taken me 3.5 years to put down as many of the stories as I can put down. And I found it quite refreshing to do. And it's made me chuckle, and I hope I've told the truth. So hopefully we'll produce something that people will enjoy. That's the game. But more importantly, from the Hearn family, I have 4 grandchildren, and they'll read this book, and hopefully they'll get some idea of what we do, how we do it, and what type of people we are. That's important for me to leave that as a legacy.
I know you've had a couple of health scares that you might touch on in the book as well, like the heart attack back in 2002, and we were all you concerned a lot of us, I think, when you had another in April of 2020. Like, how are you feeling now? How's your health?
Well, look, tomorrow I'm going to open the batting for Essex against Surrey. So I don't take a backward step. And of course I try and look after myself as much as I can, but we're all human. Every now and again, the takeaway looks excellent, and the beer looks good, So I like to enjoy my life, and I think we mustn't take ourselves too seriously. I'm not stupid about it. Try and keep in shape, but I'm okay. I mean, at the moment, but who knows? This world is such a screwed up place, and we've all gone through COVID and all that, and families have had disasters. So you mustn't feel sorry for yourself in anything. We're here. We're going to make the most of it.
I certainly want to get into some of the uplifting and funny stories in the book as well. But like when you talk about your health scares, it was a great piece I was reading quite recently in the Sunday Independent. A writer called Elle Gordon was talking about losing her dad and the impact that had on her. That final day with him, the smells of the hospital room and that sort of thing. Like, I know you lost your dad, Morris, when he was young, only 44 years of age. And look, I don't want to write your epitaph here, but heart attacks and moments like that in your own life must make you reflect, I guess.
I think as a youngster, you grow up waiting for it. I mean, my father was 44, his father was 43, and his father was 45. So, this wasn't a good advert for longevity. I don't know why. I've been spared all that, but I grew up in that atmosphere of waiting, so it didn't really come as a surprise when I had my first one, and the second one was, as far as I was concerned, was very little anyway. They just think they stick a few stents in you, you come out, with a few more reasons not to go through the metal detectors at airports, and you're off to I'm just incapable, probably immature. I don't really want to. I just don't take any notice of it. Other than, I ran marathons all around the world. I've always been in the gym most days. I keep, try and watch my weight. I do the sensible things. I mean, I used to smoke. I don't smoke. There's only so many things you can do, and the rest of it's up to God. And you actually get closer to God way. So when he decides, that's my end. That's my time. No one else. When he decides, it's my time. And up to that, I'm going to give every respect to everyone. And I'm not even going to. I don't worry about it for a second. Even when I was there was a great line when I had my first heart attack where I woke my wife up at 5 o'clock in the morning and told her I'm having a heart attack. And my wife said, let's give it 20 minutes and see how you are. And then I said, well, no, get me an ambulance. And she went, I can't dial 999. And I couldn't breathe. And, people will know. I said, why can't you dial 999? She said, it's only for emergencies. So then you realise I'm married to a woman with a sense of humour. But
that'll keep you young.
She actually woke Eddie up, and Eddie had to phone the ambulance. She wouldn't make the phone call. But look, we can't take ourselves too seriously. I mean, I know it sounds easy to say. I'm having a great life. I've had a great life. When the good Lord decides it's over, I'll go peacefully. Before that, I'm giving 110% every day.
Absolutely. Fair play. This description, Barry, as a working class hero, I mean, I know back in your childhood and teenage years, you would have worked in different odd jobs, washing cars, picking fruit, vegetables. Yeah. You obviously had an eye for entrepreneurship from the early days.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to make money. I wasn't jealous of other people. I just wanted the same. You know, I saw the big houses at the top of the hill, you know, and I thought, why haven't we got a garden? And then I went out, why haven't we got a car? But I wasn't, you don't get jealous as a child. Children are happy. You know, they're happy with loving the family. It doesn't matter about material things until you get older, you know, probably 10, 11, 12. And I looked over my shoulder and said, I want some of this. And because I wasn't a genius, the only way to do it was to work extra hard. And I was good at that because I suppose I've got a small brain. You know, someone says, you know, it's like Forrest Gump. You know, someone says run, I just run. Someone says go to work, I just go to work. And I don't finish until it's done. You know, when people say to me now, I'm supposed to be a smart businessman, they say, how do I improve productivity in my company or in my life? And I say, start an hour earlier and finish an hour later. That'll work. And it does. You know, just keep things simple and then just enjoy it. You know, I mean, if you have a passion for something, like what you're doing now, what I'm doing now, you know, we're getting paid for this. Are you sure? I mean, it's just wonderful. You know, we're lucky people, so don't take it for granted.
Absolutely, it's a great attitude to take. But when you talk about sliding doors moments in a person's life, and this is something that you start the book on, but I just wanted to reference, like, I had the pleasure of speaking with Jimmy White and Ronnie OSullivan and these guys over the years. There was a great line in one of Jimmy White's books where he talked about Steve Davis. And obviously compared his own lifestyle back in the 80s to that of Steve. And he said, Steve will happily sit in his own room and play chess and board games, whereas I'd be out somewhere causing murder. I like to dabble. He likes to scrabble. Like that moment, when you became, it's a great line, but when you became Steve Davis's manager in 1976, he goes on to win that first world title, I think, in 81. Like, I know you opened the book with this. So clearly this was a sliding doors moment when you met Steve Davis.
Totally right. I mean, obviously I met Steve in 75. Signed a contract. The only contract we've ever signed in 40 odd years was in 78 when he turned pro. And obviously 81, my life changed, his life changed, snooker changed when he won his first world championships. So that was the dividing moment. That was the defining moment in my life. And I probably wouldn't be talking to you now without that moment. And that means that I'll always owe a debt to Steve, particularly, to the Crucible, to Sheffield, where it all started. Now, to be honest with you, I've been pretty smart since then. I've done okay. But you all need a start, don't you? You need that little bit of luck to start you off, and that day gave me that. So when you look back on it, and even today, I still get, you know, when I come to Sheffield, I still get little tingly feelings on the way here. It's 45 years I've been coming here, 40 odd years. It's amazing. It's amazing what it does to you. So, yeah, I don't forget, but I still enjoy.
Like, I think you described Steve before as almost like a big issue seller, but he's one of those great ambassadors of the sport. Like, when you look at someone, you know, from the island of Ireland here that we all really appreciated was obviously Alex Hurricane Higgins, the total opposite. Like, how important though were personalities like Alex?
It was important to have a mixture, wasn't it? I mean, you wouldn't want to have 100 Alexes in a room. One was more than enough. You know, and there are times when we would love each other, and there were times when we would be squaring up to each other. You know, when we were young, there's two very different personalities. Steve was the first professional snooker player. When I say professional, he was the first one who treated snooker 100% as his job, as his life. So he was totally dedicated, and that for that reason, he had a big advantage over his work ethic, his practice ethic, which means he had more consistency in his game. Alex was capable of playing shots that no one had even thought of, but he wasn't as consistent a winner of frames as Steve Davis, and subsequently Stephen Hendry, etc. You know, so the standard went up, but Alex was still one of the main reasons why snooker became fashionable, because he was exciting. He was a personality, and you sat on the edge of your chair because you didn't know what he was going to do next. But you knew you were going to be entertained, and you know, and you have to love him for that. I mean, Alex asked me so many times for me to manage him, but he just didn't fit into my structure of, if you like, cleansing the game to be a commodity for big corporations and governments, which we needed at that time. You know, I couldn't send Alex out as an ambassador to China, for example, because I wouldn't know what on earth was going to happen when he got out there. Whereas I could send Steve Davis, Terry Griffiths, Dennis Taylor, those type of guys, because they understood the ethos and the plan we had. And Alex wanted to be part of it, but really wasn't really capable of being part of it. But we still needed him enormously to spread the gospel and the excitement of the game, if that makes sense, you know?
I think for young people nowadays, Barry, it's probably hard to fathom just how big snooker was back in the 80s when you've, 18.5 million people watching that black ball final in 85. You've, snooker players just I guess, resident names that everyone knew back then. I guess two-pronged question for you. Do you think snooker can get back to those days? And maybe, like, even for myself, watching things like, Drive to Survive, the Formula One series on Netflix, do you look at things like that and think, geez, this could be something for snooker or for darts, that we could make these guys household names again?
Well, firstly, snooker will never get back to, because it's about the surrounding sporting arenas as well. In the early 80s, snooker was bigger than football. There was a lot of crowd trouble in football. There was a quite of anti-football feeling. The snooker prize money in early 80s was bigger than the European Golf Tour. And it's not now by a country mile. So snooker lost its way a little bit, but also other sports. I mean, football got their act together, cleaned it up with not so many hooligans. Golf had this wonderful brand value, which snooker was quite late to jump on that brand value wagon, So will it get as big? Will we ever see 18.5 million people? No, of course. The broadcast landscape has changed. We're into sports streaming. We're into different type of broadcasters. We're into OTT networks, pay as you go, all this sort of stuff. So it's a different world. So we can't compare it. So park that. Now, when you look at Netflix, Drive to Survive, things like that, that is the future. And that's what we're looking at. Metro Media is our production company who does all the boxing, things like that, and are very involved in shoulder programming, enhancing. So, suddenly we're talking to TikTok, for snooker. I mean, where did that come from, Suddenly we're looking at Netflix, or DAZN being the Netflix of sport, if you like, Suddenly we're seeing, goodness me, there's a lot of fans in America. We never knew. We never scratched the surface. Now all our events are on in the States on the DAZN streaming service, and we're seeing that we've got fans, and that triggers off different commercial exploitation parts of that. Canada the same, Brazil the same. So the world is much easier to communicate with, but you have to take with you a package that is presentable, technically at the top end. Ayrton Senna's program is that really changed Formula One in my mind. And sort of basketball is the same and doing different. Snooker is coming on that same platform, and they're going to be doing some snooker programs. Already we do a lot in Weibo and in China where we spread the brand. And I think it's just beginning. So I think the future is really bright, because we've already got 500 million viewers worldwide watching the World Snooker Championships. That's a good base to start from. But we've got to go into that younger market and take advantage of new age technology to make sure that we maximize our revenues.
And it's funny, Barry, as well. Like, I was trying to think before speaking to you, if I was a sports promoter, what sort of attitude would I take? And I found the great line that you said before, where you said your dog could sell tickets to the World Cup final, but how do you get 7,000 people coming to the darts at Wolverhampton on a Tuesday? That's when you find out how good you are. Like,
that's exactly right.
This attitude is important.
Of course it is, because darts is a great example of where we've gone in and actually gone in right at the bottom and had the chance to get it right in bases. Snooker's been around quite a long time. It's been up, it's been down, it's been up, it's been down. Now it's up again. But there's always another level to go to. So complacency is the biggest killer. If you start thinking you've cracked it, that's the day you start going backwards. So you always set different targets. I set different profit targets, different prize money targets, different social media targets, different reach targets. But it's all a game. And you play like you're playing if you was playing a sport. When you run a business, you play it the same way. I play to win. I play to destroy my opposition, to outmaneuver everybody, and to win. And I judge my winnings on prize money levels for players, profits for the company, and various things. So you don't ever take second best, but you do appreciate that you're not going to win every argument. But you've got to be a lot more creative in today's market, and you've got to understand your target market. Snooker's got quite an older demographic profile. So the real job is to bring in the younger people. And to do that, we have to bring in younger technology. Why are we talking to you on off the ball? It's a beginning, isn't it? And we should do. You're involved in sport. You love snooker, but you love lots of sport. And off the ball is a decent size operation for your market, and we want to be part of that. So, we're learning and earning off you, and you're learning and earning of us. It's a great relationship as long as we all get bigger, and that's where you set your targets in, and you make sure that everyone's motivated and rewarded for hitting those targets.
I'm sure a lot of these off the ball listeners and viewers today will be desperate to pick up a copy of this book. I just want to touch on a couple of those anecdotes from this book, Barry, because some of them are just quite incredible, and no doubt will encourage many of our listeners to pick up a copy. One in particular, like you talk about Ronnie OSullivan as someone, 38 ranking titles, 6 world titles. I know you've named a couple of your stray grey hairs after Ronnie with the trouble he's caused you, but maybe tell us the story about the 16-year-old Ronnie OSullivan and your quite strange method in terms of forcing Ronnie to go pro.
Yeah, people will know in business you have to use different techniques and different tactics to achieve your objectives, and some of them are weird. And this was particularly weird because you wouldn't imagine seeing such a nice old guy like me now, but I was very unpopular with the governing body, the WPBSA, because I was a bit of a renegade and I did things that they didn't approve of. I'm sure they were right sometimes not to like me, but when it came to my looking after players, sometimes that dislike of me overflowed onto the player, which was unfair on the player. Ronnie OSullivan was slightly under the age of being allowed in, but was such a talent that the game was crying out for this genius to be included in the professional ranks. But the WPBSA in those days wouldn't let him in. They were strictly sticking to the letter of the law. So we arranged a meeting where I went up to see the WPBSA board, and you could feel the animosity in the room. They didn't like me, simple as that. Right or wrong, they didn't like me. And I actually turned around to them, and when I was making no progress on getting Ronnie fast-tracked into the professional game, I said, gentlemen, I think we all know what's going on here. I said, you don't like me, so I have a suggestion for you. And I dropped my trousers, then I dropped my underwear, and my hairy ass was exposed to them. I leant over a tree and said, if you want to fuck anyone, fuck me, but don't fuck the kid. And of course, they can imagine Jeff Folds, John Spencer, all these, their faces were like, it just threw them completely. And then Jeff Folds had a little bit of a stutter in those days. And he just said, pull your trousers up. And 3 minutes later, Ronnie OSullivan was allowed to become a professional snooker player.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
And the rest, as they say, is history. Thanks to my hairy ass.
It's quite a story. It's funny how some players and fighters and members of different sports come to you themselves. I know the great snooker referee Len Ganley was heavily involved in your first meeting, Chris Eubank, for example.
Yeah, Len was obviously larger than life character, Northern Ireland, and he was very famous. I don't think there's ever been a referee as famous as Len Ganley. He was at a time when he was a character. And he phoned me up one day and said, there's a kid up here who wants to meet you. And I was down in Romford in my office, and Len was in Sheffield during the World Championships. He said his name is Eubank, Christopher Eubank. And funnily enough, I've been watching this kid's career develop. He was about 8-0, 9-0, something like that. So I said to Len, well, make a meet. And Len arranged all of it. And Eubank swarmed into the Grosvenor Hotel in Sheffield. His first line was, my name is Christopher Livingston Eubank. I'm an athlete and I know what I'm worth. And I thought, I love this guy. He had something, as he walked in the room, the lights turned on themselves. And that's the magic I'm always looking for. And again, the rest was history.
like we know Eubank as this, he's well able to take a hit, and he was well able to take a hit and give one as well. The great story about when he moved up to super middleweight, this fight against Juan Carlos Jimenez in Manchester. But I know you had to go down and meet Chris a few days before that fight in Brighton, and he was quite sore.
Yeah, well, that was the weirdest meeting. I mean, Eubank was weird, right? I mean, he's a nutcase, but he's a lovely man, and he's honest as the day is night. But he's just, he's a character, and he's crazy sometimes. And 2 days before the Jimenez fight in Manchester, he phoned me up, and he always struggled to make the weight, and he sounded very weak. And he said, Bazzy, you've got to come down and see me in Brighton. So I thought he needed an arm around his shoulder, and don't worry, son, 2 more days and you can eat something. So I went down to Brighton to see him, and he said, I've got to show you something. He stood up and he locked the study door, which I thought was a bit weird. Then he dropped his trousers, then he dropped his underwear. And his manhood was, I won't go into details because it's a family program, but it was massive. And I said, good God. And Eubank said to me, I know it's not normally this big. He said, but because I don't have sex a week before a fight, and I've been having a little bit of a problem, I got myself circumcised yesterday. I'm like, you've got a fight on Saturday. You've got, you're coming up to 30 years old. It's not a small operation. You got circumcised. Are you mad? And Eubank said, I know what you're thinking. Don't worry. He said, I took Ronnie Davis, my trainer, with me, with the strict instructions, I can't have any drugs because it might affect my drug test. So I didn't have any. And I said to Ronnie, if I scream out, if they give me any drugs, when I wake up, I'll kill you. He said, so he was circumcised with a local anesthetic. It's just like too horrible to think about. And he went out and did 12 rounds with Jimenez, who constantly let his punches go a bit low. Fortunately, I'd stuck about 3 packets of Kleenex tissues down the front of his protector before he went out because I was wincing myself. I said at the end of the fight, what on earth were you thinking of? And he said, Bazza, for what you're paying me, so I go in there with one arm. So there you go. That's the eccentric character of Eubank. My life was enriched by him, not just financially, because he was strange, but a wonderful entertainer and a wonderful sportsman, but sometimes a bit crazy.
I almost feel like there's a common thread here, Barry, in terms of people you've dealt with that, when they prove themselves to you, you really appreciate them more. Like Eubank getting into the ring after that. I think of you getting into the ring yourself with Eddie when he was younger, and even another story with Stephen Hendry, who couldn't swim, for those people who aren't aware.
I know.
And a trip to Hong Kong where he proved himself. But these are all great stories that you really appreciated these because of things that they did.
I think you do. I set little traps, little tests, because I want to find out who I'm really, because I'm good at bullshit, right? So I therefore appreciate other people's bullshit. But I always tell myself the truth. That's the most important person you can tell the truth to is yourself. So when I hear all these people talking things, I've been fortunate enough to be close to them to find out what type of person are they. So things like Stephen Hendry interesting. I sent Davis up to Scotland when Stephen Hendry first came on the scene, and they wanted a 7-day tour. This young protege against the great Steve Davis. And I said to Davis, go up there and kill him. I don't want him to get a point, not 1 point. I know it's only an exhibition, so it's not money, but I want you to destroy him every night. I want him to know that while he's alive, while he's breathing, he can't beat you. So I want something in his head. And Davis went up for 7 days, absolutely annihilated Hendry. The worst thing we ever did, because Hendry was good enough, had the character to learn from defeat and to improve, and he became a great, great player. Now, when we were in Hong Kong and we were moored half a mile out on this boat, compliments of some Chinese snooker fan that loved Jimmy White, we wanted to go to the beach. So I'm a fairly strong swimmer, not a problem. We all dived in to swim, and Hendry said, I can't swim. So we thought, well, we'll leave you on the boat then. He went, no. Give me a life jacket and I'll swim with it. And he put a life jacket on and swam. Now, when you can't swim and you're out in the ocean, that takes a bit of bottle. And once again, it's another reason why I knew he was never going to be short of bottle. He went into a completely alien and just had the mental strength to achieve what he wanted to achieve. And you transfer that into sporting side, you know, you've got it. You have it with everyone, you know. Steve Collins, when he boxed Eubank, the story's in the book as well, you know, where he's decided to say that he had been hypnotized and his chin had been hypnotized so that he couldn't be knocked out when he fought Eubank. It completely did Eubank's head in. And it was total rubbish, by the way. I said to Eubank, you can't hypnotize a chin, son. It's a bit of bone. But it did Eubank's head in and it won Collins the fight. So there's different types of ways of looking at people and finding out what have you really got. You know, that's the analytical part of making a personality famous.
You've mentioned Steve Collins there, great Irish fighter. Another one that I know is Katie Taylor, and there was a great video of yourself, I think, talking to Katie after her first professional fight, where you were giving her a bit of advice, you know, telling her to keep her feet on the ground, keep your camp around her small. Like, how important is someone like that for women's sport, to have a role model for young girls and young boys as well to look up to? I'm
totally biased because I think Katie Taylor is one of the most special people I've ever met in my life. I just think she's the type of, the highest compliment I could pay her. She's the type of girl you'd love to have as your daughter. You know, she's an inspiration. She's a professional. She is focused. She's hardworking. She treats herself the same as everybody else, but she's a winner. I mean, she's got a really tough fight ahead of her against Serrano. Just a week and a bit's time, isn't it? It's not too far away. I can't tell you what she has done for professional boxing, for men and women, and how she's changed the sport on her own. And frankly, if there was an award in Ireland, I don't know whether you make someone queen, then Katie Taylor should get it. She should be the Queen of Ireland because she represents the country and her sport better than anyone I've ever seen.
Yeah, she's quite incredible role model.
Incredible, yeah, incredible girl.
Barry, you've been fantastic with your time. I just have to finish on another quote from yourself, and I guess when you're talking about advice for people, and this book is going to be, as you said, a legacy, and people can pick it up and read all these fantastic stories. There's a great story as well about Don King telling him to essentially head off back to America. I think well able to stand up for yourself. It's fair to say. The great quote from you said, "I'm a gold medalist in enthusiasm, but not even bronze in ability." But that's clearly that's a great attitude to take. That you need to be enthusiastic about what you do, and clearly you are.
I think enthusiasm gets you up that hour earlier, makes you don't want to go to sleep because you haven't finished the job, so you stay, focuses you on achievements. I think it's quite nice to get a slap on the back and say, well done. But, you know, the one that always knows whether you've done well is yourself. So I don't kid myself. I'm not perfect. Make a few mistakes. Try to keep them as quiet as possible. Enjoy every second. And looking at the people, to see people's lives change through sport has been the most amazing thing of my entire life. To have people that perhaps grew up in an era that similar to where I grew up, and to change, not just for themselves, but from their family, from their community, to be a focus point, to inspire others. So for me, if I can help that, you know, and with my passion for sport, although, as I said, the ability, listen, I wasn't bad at anything, but I wasn't great at anything either. So, you know, bronze medal, maybe not bronze, 5th or 6th, I'll be there, you know. So not bad. But at the same time, it makes me appreciate those who've got special ability and focuses my attention on making sure that we do a good job for everyone. It's quite simple.
Absolutely. It's a great attitude to take. Just a reminder for people, Barry, the book, My Life, Knockouts, Snookers, Bullseyes, Tight Lines and Sweet Deal. People can get it on Amazon, all the good bookstores as well. And as I said, that evening, Tuesday, May 3rd, signed copies of the book, Anecdotes of the Crucible Theatre in Sheffield for people who want it as well. But Barry, pleasure to talk to you as always. And we'll catch up with the Crucible next year, I'm sure.
Well, I hope so. Look after yourself. Stay healthy. Yeah.